The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Dr. Jerry Corsi is our guest. You can see the picture of Barack Obama's latest half-brother who is disputing his book, Dreams. It's up 710. Our website has this man's picture, and it works right with Dr. Jerry Corsi, of course, the man who has been on the trail of who, in fact, is Barack Obama, with books, investigations, and travel, and yet another Obama relative has surfaced, and as Jerry says, to cause the president grief over the credibility of the story he has recounted in his autobiography, Dreams from My Father. Cascio and others obviously believe that Ayers wrote his book, and he even played down his knowledge of Ayers until that blew up in his face. He was just some guy from the neighborhood, and their kids went to school together, and that was taken apart. And Jerry's trying to construct a very iffy who or what is Barack Obama. And there are these different people that show up in his life, and they're there for a reasonable amount of time. They heavily influence him, and yet he never speaks about them, and he kind of drives on. And I think if it were said and done, there's many, many people who believe he has a totally separate biological father than Barack Obama. What do you do with that?
Well, and Peter, the reason these questions are important is because I think Americans have a reasonable expectation that their president or someone running for president is going to be honest about who they are, and not have a secret agenda that, is hidden from the American people, a political orientation, a political past, or political involvements that are buried because they're too embarrassing or, too difficult to be known. I mean, what if someone were running for president and actually did have ties to a foreign intelligence agency, or was, lied about their birth and was born and partly raised, as Barack Obama was, in foreign countries, raised in Indonesia at a time when Indonesia was going through great political turmoil, and very few Americans were there who weren't CIA involved or knowledgeable to the CIA. Barack Obama comes back for one of the families that is politically corrected in this, Sukarno-Suharto disaster in which the CIA participates in killing 500,000 people, largely communists, in Indonesia. And Obama's brought by his mother back into this environment to be raised by his stepfather.
She literally drops him off and takes off.
Yeah, and then Ann Dunham is there, not there a lot of the times, and appears to have lived a very open marriage lifestyle with other lovers, other people, and the whole thing is so much of a mess when you can get documents, and so much of it is suppressed, where you can't get the passport record, you can't get the school records, you can't get the grades, you can't get, and then when we want to get the passport records, if you get the current head of the CIA, whose private security firm breaks into the passport records, and the news reports are sanitized as Obama's passport records.
Frank Marshall Davis.
Yes.
What do you do?
Well,
with
he was
that?
one of the major. Frank Marshall Davis was a major communist figure. He was an African American poet and journalist from Chicago who relocated in Hawaii. Hawaii in the 1950s was a very, very radical, communist-driven place. The communists were taking over the Democratic Party, and consciously taking over the Democratic Party in order to effect a revolution. And Frank Marshall Davis was writing for Honolulu papers and was in the middle of the labor problems and labor issues. Harry Belafonte was involved in it. I mean, there was, a whole series of very prominent African Americans, one way or the other, involved ultimately in this Hawaiian situation. Frank Marshall Davis, it looks like, was a mentor or a second father, or as I think Joel Gilbert in his DVD on, Barack Obama's real father identifies Frank Marshall Davis as the father. And some of the physical characteristics are remarkable. Take a look at the spots on Frank Marshall Davis's face, and the age spots that are beginning to appear on Barack Obama's face.
The nude pictures of his mother.
Nude pictures of the mother would surface.
As Gilbert has done, he showed you the hardwood in that house. And then,
in fact, I've gone to that house with Joel, and the house where Frank Marshall Davis lived, where those nude pictures appear to have been taken, and the physical setup of the house and the physical setup of those nude pictures of Ann Dunham look pretty much the same to me.
To me, is the same. Yeah, I mean, and there she is. And, of course, if you bring that up, well, who took the nude pictures of a young Stanley Ann Dunham? And, oh, my God, the fuses blow up in their heads.
Well, see, this is the problem, is that it's become, I'm sure you're already getting inundated with emails and phone calls about there's a racist discussion. And see, if you criticize Barack Obama, the left immediately says you're a racist, and they inundate you with this intolerant. They won't answer or listen to the argument. It's a matter of, then suddenly you're overwhelmed with ad hominem attacks. They try to destroy your career. What's going on with the Duck Dynasty is the kind of thing I've experienced since I've been writing about Barack Obama, is that, the left is going to do everything they can. They're so afraid of the truth about Barack Obama, the far left, that in order to protect Obama, they castigate and vilify anybody who dares investigate or criticize who he is. Well, that's ultimately to the detriment of the country. It's ultimately to the detriment of the presidency. And I think you're finding many, many people today, especially among the young, who now after two attempts to, two re-election of Barack Obama, president's second time, are realizing they're not getting jobs, they're not getting an economy, a lot of things. When I wrote Abomination, I said Obama will have a much weakened economy. He will redistribute income. He's basically a socialist or a Marxist. That we're going to end up in a weakened situation internationally with a much poorer military and a loss of face in the international setting, and we would end up racially divided. Because Barack Obama's history, Frank Marshall Davis, through Saul Alinsky training, all of what Obama is a divider, because that's the fundamental socialist strategy since Karl Marx. And then it came, and if you want to see it, just go read Saul Alinsky. I wrote a little book, Saul Alinsky, the evil genius behind Obama.
Rules for Radicals was his
Rules
book.
for Radicals. Saul Alinsky lays it all out.
Sure, and they do it.
They do it. Divide, rub raw the antagonisms, and that's what Obama does.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
Can you imagine nude pictures of John McCain's mother or Sarah Palin's mother, and no one will touch them?
Well, how about, see, this is where the hypocrisy of the left is so evident.
Or the mainstream press.
The mainstream media, which is, dying. You're seeing it again and again. The New York Times will not investigate Obama. They sent 50 people to Alaska to investigate Sarah Palin.
Well, they parachuted people into Anchorage.
You're about to see it again. The mainstream media is not going to cover the political trials of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. And Egypt is setting out to show that the Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization, and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's brother, another brother, Malik Obama, managed money for the Muslim Brotherhood. President Obama, Malik Obama, and Hillary are named in the criminal indictments of the trials that are going to go on in January in Egypt, in Cairo, with the former president, Morsi, on trial basically for his life. And you will find the New York Times does not even convey the story or tell the American public what's happening, because they don't want the American people understanding the extent to which the current Egyptian government, which New York Times is portraying as a military junta, which is really the establishment of finally getting back to government. Muslim Brotherhood took over under Morsi. They were killing Copt Christians. They were bankrupting the country, and they were basically moving in a terrorist direction. People threw the Muslim Brotherhood out and Morsi out, and now in the criminal trials going on, you're going to find implications of the Obama administration and Hillary, which I guarantee you the mainstream media, you'll have to look at WND.com and a few other sources to find out what's going on. We'll report it out of the Egypt, the pink papers in Egypt and being written in Arabic, but mainstream media will sanitize it and not bring to the American people attention the extent to which Egypt has rejected the Obama administration, would like to criminally prosecute Obama, his brother, and Hillary for their involvement in promoting the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. There's Muslim Brotherhood members working in the administration, in the White House.
Oh, yeah.
Obama's recruited them.
I have a friend who has an interesting line. He always says, they were sending those fighter bombers to Mohammed Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yes.
And they don't trust you with a deer rifle.
Well, we equipped, we armed, we put military assistance, we put billions of dollars into the Morsi government. When the Morsi government was overthrown, Barack Obama hardly said a word, cut off aid, and Egypt has now moved closer to Russia. Again, you will not find that reported in the mainstream media, and most Americans are unaware of it, except that all the rest of the world is following it intensively.
Well, the media in this country is headed for the trash bin, or the dustbin, if you would, but another example, and you and I have talked about this at great length, and you really are the leader in all of this, that yet another brother who we knew existed, but now he's got a book. And my best guess is that Brian Williams is not going to make this the lead story. But again, if you compare and contrast to a Sarah Palin or a John McCain, suppose John McCain had a brother, or Sarah Palin's mother had nude pictures.
Came out that Sarah Palin isn't who she says she is.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Okay, now, what you're having is, by the time this new Nisanjo from China publishes his book in February, Cultures, on the Obama family story, and says again that his brother, the President Obama, has lied about his past and is not who he says he is. There's just too much of this.
I agree.
We have too much on the record now indicating that Obama's life history is a fiction, including Social Security number that still doesn't work that he's using. Can't e-verify it, can't get it through healthcare.gov. Social Security Administration says we did not issue that number to Barack Obama. I mean, these are the kinds of identity problems that are so fundamental. And, you see the CIA's involvement in sanitizing Barack Obama's record. I mean, there's some serious questions here in terms of, who Obama really is, what his agenda is, who put him in office, who promoted him, who's funded him. That these things are, again, are going to have to unravel historically. But Obama, Peter, I continue to remind people the story is not done yet because Obama is still in the very difficult second term, and it's not going very well. And as Obamacare crashes, and I think it's going to crash, I'm writing a series of articles today about the redistribution of income that's based in the Obamacare to subsidize the LGBT community and HIV/AIDS. And there's a lot of redistribution of income efforts going on here, and it's not going to work if the younger people don't just willingly step up and pay for very expensive insurance.
And again, I mean, we look at these things, it's almost, I remember having conversations with people that were trying to tell me that all of the money that was going to be infused into the banks was going to help. And I said, it can't. It's never worked. It's not going to work now.
It's not going to work. And, when you start, I'm seeing even now Mother Jones is starting to write articles criticizing Barack Obama's economics. Well, economics Obama's put into place don't work. And I warn people, we're in a stock market bubble. Federal Reserve is going to continue to pump, maybe not quite as great a level. They cut back a little tiny bit the quantitative easing, but the Fed is still buying, massive quantities, $75 billion a month of our debt issued by the Treasury.
It's amazing.
And this is causing a stock market bubble, like the dot-com bubble, like the housing market bubble. The stock market bubble we're currently in will burst. And when it does, it's going to be very painful.
As always, Happy New Year. You made the morning happen. The picture of the half-brother is up on the website, 710 KNUS. Jerry, for all these years, thank you so much. You're a tough guy. Thank you, sir.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
You too. Dr. Jerry Corsi. All right.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.